Welcome back to Still Here, Still Trying. This is the show where Mike Baker takes well-meaning advice, holds it up to the light, and decides whether it still deserves to be running your life. Today's episode is about the things we keep teaching, because they sound responsible, motivational, and impressive, even when they quietly stop working. Follow your passion. Do what you love, and it'll never feel like work. Always be confident. Push through no matter what. We've all heard them. Some of us built whole lives around them. Some of us are still tired because of them. Mike isn't here to burn it all down. He's here to update the rules. This one's practical. It's honest. And it might save you a little time, energy, and unnecessary self-doubt. So if you're ready to stop collecting advice and start using better filters, settle in. Here's Mike.
Hello again. Welcome back to Still Here, Still Trying. I'm Mike Baker, and I'm so excited that you're here. I know. I say it every week, but it doesn't change. I just am excited that you're here. So, you know how we do this. Quick housekeeping before we get into it. If you're getting something useful from this show, please follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. It helps those podcasters that are out there doing the work. It helps them get a little bit of traction from the algorithm. So if you haven't done it, check it out. It really helps. Helps me, helps anyone else that you're working with. So do a little subscribe, leave a little comment, rate that show, whatever you can that helps. And then also share with someone who might need it, because that's how this show keeps finding the right people. Well, today's episode is one that I've been thinking about for quite a while. There's a lot of advice out there that sounds smart, well-intentioned, and it's even inspiring. And it's advice that we repeat without really questioning it. It's advice that worked at one point or for someone else or in a different chapter of life. And some of it stops actually helping long before we admit it. And so that's why we're going to talk about it today. So in this episode, I want to talk about a few things that I would stop teaching if I was being honest. Not to be contrarian, not to tear anything down, but because updating what we believe is part of growing up. We're going to talk about passion, work, confidence, and grit. And I'm going to give you some practical filters that you can actually use, not just ideas that sound good on a poster. My hope is that you leave this episode clearer than when you started, with one or two things that you might do differently this week. So let's get into it. Okay, well, for a long time, we told people to follow their passion. And I've said it, I've believed it, I still believe it. I've also passed it along like it was responsible advice. And I don't think it actually helps the way that we pretend it does. Because here's what actually happens when most people hear that phrase. They don't feel inspired. I think they feel exposed. Because if you don't already know what your passion is, the message quietly becomes, you're late. Everyone else figured it something out that you missed. There must be something wrong with you. And that's a heavy thing to carry. Most people aren't lacking passion. They're overloaded. They're tired. They're responsible for other people. They're trying to keep their heads above water. So telling them to wait for a lightning bolt before they move just creates stillness. And stillness, when you didn't choose it, turns into doubt. People sit there scanning themselves like a broken machine. Why don't I feel excited? Why doesn't anything light me up? Why does everyone else seem so sure? Don't worry, we're not sure. That's not a personal failure. That's actually just bad instruction. And I'm sorry. What I've learned is that passion is rarely a starting point. It's usually the result of doing something long enough to get better at it. Competence changes how things feel. Progress changes how things feel. Confidence grows out of repetition, not inspiration. If I look honestly at the things that I care most about now, almost none of them started as passion projects. They started as obligation, curiosity, or a simple decision to show up again tomorrow. The passion actually showed up later. after the awkward phase, after the early mistakes, after I stopped feeling stupid every time I touched it. So here's the shift that I would teach instead. I would stop asking, what am I passionate about? Well, it's a great question. That question is too big and too abstract. It sounds deep, but it stalls people out. Ask smaller, more honest questions. What am I curious about enough to tolerate being bad at it for a while? What problem do I find myself thinking about even when no one asks me to? What skill, if I got a little better at it, would make my life easier or more interesting? Those questions, those actually move your feet. And here's something practical that you can actually do. Pick one thing that you're mildly interested in, not obsessed with, not life defining, just interested enough to try, and commit to it for 30 days. Not perfectly, not passionately, well, you can do that, but consistently. No pressure to love it, no pressure to turn it into a career, no pressure to even post about it or explain it to anyone. Just show up, and at the end of those 30 days, don't ask, did I find my passion? Ask better questions. Am I clearer than I was? Do I feel more capable? Did something that felt heavy start to feel lighter? Do I understand this space better than before? That's how real momentum starts. Another thing nobody tells you is that passion isn't evenly distributed. It comes in waves, it fades, it comes back different. If you build your life around chasing the feeling, you end up constantly second guessing yourself the moment things feel hard or boring. But if you build your life around commitment to something that matters, passion becomes a bonus, not a requirement. Waiting to feel passionate before you act keeps people stuck. Acting first gives passion a place to land, and that is the difference. And if we're being honest, that's the version that I really think we should be teaching. Okay, well, next, there's another line that we've all heard 1,000 times. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. It sounds generous. It sounds hopeful. It actually sounds like wisdom. And I think it sets people up to feel broken the moment that reality shows up. Because here's the truth that most people won't say out loud. Anything worth doing starts feeling like work eventually. Even the right thing, even the meaningful thing, even the thing that you choose on purpose. Work shows up as a responsibility, as pressure, as repetition, as days when you would rather be anywhere else. That doesn't mean that you chose wrong. It means you're doing something real. And when we tell people that loving their work means it never feels heavy, we quietly teach them to panic the moment that it does. They start asking the wrong questions. Why does this feel hard now? Why am I tired if this is what I'm meant to do? Why don't I feel grateful every single day? That spiral doesn't lead to clarity. It actually leads to shame, and it's pretty devastating. So here's what I wish we taught instead. Every job has hard parts. The question is not whether work feels hard. The question is whether hard parts feel worth it. And that's a very different filter. Some work is hard in ways that drain you, and some work is hard in ways that sharpen you. Learning the difference changes everything. So here's a practical way to think about it. Make 2 lists. On one side, write down the kinds of hard that you hate, the kind that leaves you resentful, the kind that makes you smaller, the kind that follows you home and won't let go. On the other side, write down the kinds of hard you can live with, the kind that stretches you, the kind that feels purposeful even when it's exhausting, the kind that makes you tired but proud. That second list matters way more than what you love, because love fades on long weeks, purpose holds. Another thing we don't talk about enough is this. Loving the outcome is different from loving every step. You can love what your work creates and still hate parts of the process. I know I do. You can believe in the mission and still dread certain days, don't you? You can choose a path and still question it sometimes. That happens all the time. That is not failure. That's honesty. People who last don't last because they found work that never felt heavy. They last because they found work where the weight made sense. They knew why they were carrying it. If you if you're listening to this and thinking, "But I don't love my job." Well, that's not the end of the conversation. I think you just need to ask better questions. Does this work teach me something useful? Does it give me skills that I can take with me? Does it fund the life that I actually want to live? Does it move me closer to something that I care about? Work doesn't have to be your passion to be valuable. Sometimes it's a bridge. Sometimes it's training. Sometimes it's support. And that's okay. The real mistake is believing that difficulty means that you chose wrong. Sometimes difficulty means that you chose something that matters. And that is a distinction that I think is worth teaching. All right. Well, we also teach people to be confident all the time in every room. No cracks, no hesitation. Confidence gets framed as the goal, as proof that you belong, as evidence that you know what you're doing. And I get why that advice exists. Confidence feels reassuring, especially when things are unclear. But there's a real problem. Confidence without competence is just noise. And confidence without curiosity shuts learning down fast. I have watched really, really smart people stop growing because they felt pressure to sound certain instead of asking better questions. They stopped listening. They stopped adjusting. They stopped noticing when the ground shifted. Certainty can feel strong in the moment, but over time, I think it actually hardens people. What I trust more now is competence. And competence doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up as preparation, as follow through, as the ability to say, I don't know yet, but I'm paying attention. That's not weakness, that's stability. One of the biggest shifts for me was realizing that I didn't need to be the most confident person in the room. I needed to be the most present. Present enough to notice what I was missing. Present enough to hear what wasn't being said. And present enough to change my mind without defending the old version of myself. Well, here's something practical that you can use. Pay attention to how often you're making statements versus asking questions. Statements close loops, questions open them. If you're always certain, you're probably done learning in that space. And here's the quiet truth most people won't admit. A lot of confidence is performative. It's protection. It's armor people put on when they don't feel safe being unsure. And that armor gets really, really heavy. You actually don't have to wear it all the time. Some of the strongest leaders, creators, and parents that I know aren't the loudest or the most certain. They're the ones who stay curious longer than everyone else. They ask, what am I missing? What's changed? What would I do differently if I knew more? That posture keeps you adaptable. It keeps you human. It keeps you learning. If you want something to try this week, here's a simple rule. In your next meeting or conversation, replace one confident statement with a genuine question. Not a rhetorical one, a real one. And then watch what happens. You'll get better information. You'll invite better dialogue, and you'll feel less pressure to perform. Confidence has its place. Curiosity has a longer shelf life. And that's the shift that I wish that we taught sooner. Another thing that we love to teach is pushing through. Power through, dig deeper, don't quit, rest later. That advice has built some incredible things. It's also broken a lot of people. The problem isn't effort, The problem is effort without reflection. When we tell people to push through no matter what, we skip the most important question. What am I actually pushing through for? Because there's a difference between discipline and denial. Sometimes pushing through is exactly what the moment requires. Sometimes it's how you build resilience, skill, and trust in yourself. And sometimes it's how you avoid admitting something isn't working. And that's the part that we don't teach well. We treat stopping like failure and resting like weakness. We praise endurance without asking what it's costing. Here's what I've learned the hard way. If you never pause, you don't get clearer. You just get louder and more tired. Burnout doesn't usually come from working too hard. It comes from working too hard on things that don't feel aligned anymore. Your body knows this before your brain does, and you start feeling short tempered. Decision making gets sloppy. You lose patience for things that used to feel manageable. That's not laziness, that's information. So here's a better filter. When something feels hard, ask yourself 3 questions. Am I tired or am I misaligned? Is this resistance or is this a signal? If I keep going exactly like this for 6 more months, what breaks first? And I love that question. Those questions don't make you weak, they make you honest. So here's the reframe that I wish that we taught. Persistence is a skill, and so is discernment. Knowing when to push and knowing when to pause are both forms of strength. Rest isn't quitting, pausing isn't giving up. Sometimes stopping is how you protect what matters long enough to keep going. If you want something concrete to try this week, do this. Schedule one intentional stop, not a collapse, not scrolling until you're numb, an actual pause. Take a walk without a podcast after you've listened to mine, right? Close the laptop for an hour. Say no to one thing that drains you more than it gives back. And then see what shows up in the quiet. Clarity usually shows up. We don't need tougher people. We need people who know how to listen to themselves before something breaks. And that's a better kind of strength. Well, look, when you zoom out, all of this points to the same thing. A lot of advice sticks around long after it stops being helpful. Follow your passion, do what you love, always be confident, push through no matter what. None of those ideas are evil, they're just incomplete. They get taught without context, without timing, without room for the fact that people change. Lives get heavier, and what worked once doesn't always work forever. What I've learned is that growth isn't about collecting more rules. It's about knowing which ones to retire. Better decisions come from better filters. Instead of asking what's the right advice, ask, does this fit where I am at right now? Does this help me move forward or does it just sound good? Does this make my life more honest or more performative? You don't need perfect guidance. You need permission to question the guidance that you've outgrown. Passion doesn't have to come first. Work doesn't have to feel easy to be meaningful. Confidence doesn't have to be loud to be real. And rest doesn't mean that you've failed. Those shifts don't make you weaker, they make you more durable. If you're listening to this and realizing that some old advice has been running your life longer than it should have, that's not a problem. That's progress. Letting go of what no longer fits is part of becoming someone that you actually trust. Wherever you're at right now, just take one idea from this episode and try it on this week. Just one. Notice what changes when you stop forcing something that isn't working and start listening a little more closely. Because that's how growth actually happens. Okay, well, thank you for being here. Thanks for thinking with me. Thanks for processing this with me. Look, I say this every week. I'm still here. I'm still trying. I'm not perfect. But I'm so glad that you're still here and that you're still trying. It's such a fun adventure having this podcast and being able to talk with you every week. I hope that this is a powerful week for you, that you try one of these things on and that you see a meaningful difference in your life. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you again next week. Okay, well, before we wrap this one up, I want to leave you with a song. It's called When the World Gets Loud. This episode was about unlearning advice that stopped helping. And this song is about what you keep when everything around you feels noisy, reactive, and sharp. You don't have to match the volume. You don't have to harden to survive. You don't even have to shout to matter. There's strength in staying steady. There's courage in choosing kindness when it would be easier to escalate. And there's power in being calm on purpose. Look, I think the world feels loud right now. So let this one sit with you for a minute. Let it remind you that quiet doesn't mean weak. It means rooted. Thanks for being here. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the song.
I've seen the days grow darker fast, where kindness feels like it won't last. But even in the roaring crowd, I still believe in soft and proud. The world will shout, it'll spin and storm, but hearts like yours can keep it warm. A gentle hand, a steady vow to stand for peace here and now. When the world gets loud, get kinder still. Speak with grace and silent will. Let your love be brave and bright, a whisper strong as morning light. I've walked through fires of anger's flame, but mercy never speaks with shame. It holds the door, it waits in line, it heals the wounds we leave behind. So take a breath, don't raise your voice, let calmness be your loudest choice. When the world gets loud, get kinder still. Speak with grace and silent will. Let your love be brave and bright, a whisper strong as morning light. Kindness isn't weakness, friend, it's how the broken start to mend. Your quiet light, it leads the way through chaos night and noonday gray. And when you think you're not enough, remember gentle hearts are tough. When the world gets loud, get kinder still. Speak with grace and silent will. Let your love be brave and bright, a whisper strong as morning light. Let your whisper change the crowd when the world gets loud.